In a narrow street in Ajegunle, Lagos State, where the air always carried the smell of akara in the mornings and roasted corns in the evenings, life moved like a familiar rhythm. Children chased worn-out footballs on the dusty road.
I'm
Women
open!
argued
Not sexy!
playfully over change
Daddy,
at Mama
coming back!
Blessing's provision shop.
Shoo!
And every evening, neighbors gathered outside the gates to discuss everything from politics to fuel price to whose child passed WAEC. Right at the corner of the street stood a small salon with a bright hand-painted signboard that read, "Blessing Touch Hair Palace. Beauty is our calling." But everyone in the neighborhood simply called it Mama Blessing Salon. Mama Blessing was a talkative woman in her early 40s with nimble hands and sharp eyes that noticed everything. She could braid hair faster than most people could finish a cup of tea. But more than her skills with hair, it was her tongue that kept customers filling the plastic chairs in her salon. Women came to braid hair, but they stayed for the stories and the advice. Marriage is not beans oh, my sister. Mama Blessing liked to say, while twisting extensions into neat cornrows. If you don't shine your eyes, somebody else will shine it for you. People laughed when she spoke like that. At first, it felt harmless. After all, in Nigerian neighborhoods, everybody talks. But Mama Blessing didn't just talk, she advised. And slowly, that advice began to travel from the salon into people's home. One Tuesday afternoon, a young woman named Amaka sat in her salon. She had been married for only 7 months. Her husband Chinedu worked at a small electronics shop in Alaba Market. Mama Blessing was braiding Amaka's hair when she suddenly asked, "My sister, your husband treats you well?" Amaka smiled. "Yes, Mama Blessing, he is a good man." Mama Blessing paused. Then she sighed. Amaka looked at her reflection in the mirror. "Why did you say like that?" Mama Blessing leaned closer. "My daughter, I have seen many marriages. Sometimes, when everything looks so peaceful, that is when you should open your eyes well." The other women in the salon chuckled. One said jokingly, "That is true oh." Mama Blessing continued, "I am not saying your husband is bad though, but check his phone once in a while." Amaka laughed nervously. "Ah, Mama Blessing, I trust him." Mama Blessing shook her head slowly. "My sister, trust is good, but wisdom is better." The women in the salon murmured in agreement, but Amaka laughed it off. But later that night, when Chinedu fell asleep, something whispered in her mind, "Check his phone." And she did. Amaka found nothing suspicious, but the damage had already started. She began to notice small things. When Chinedu smiled while texting someone, when he stepped outside to answer calls, when he came home late from work. Before Mama Blessing's advice, those things meant nothing. Now, they meant everything. One evening, she asked him sharply, "Who are you chatting with?" Chinedu looked confused. "My cousin." "Which cousin?" He frowned. "Amaka, what kind of question is this now?" That night, they argued for the first time since their wedding. A small argument, but arguments are like cracks in a wall. If they continue, the wall eventually breaks. Meanwhile, the salon continued buzzing with conversations. One afternoon, Ngozi came complaining loudly. "My husband now returns home by 9 p.m. every day." Mama Blessing clicked her tongue. "My sister, men are like goats. If you don't tie them well, they will eat another person's yam." The women burst into laughter. Ngozi asked, "So, what should I do?" Mama Blessing said confidently, "Start asking questions. Let him know you are not blind." Ngozi nodded. That night, she confronted her husband aggressively. What should have been a calm conversation turned into a serious quarrel. Neighbors heard shouting, Plates broke. Their children cried. Week by week, more women came to the salon with their relationship issues. Mama Blessing always had something to say. To one woman, she said, if your husband suddenly buys you gifts, check what he's hiding. To another, she said, when a man greets another woman too often, it means something. Slowly, the advice traveled from the salon into different homes. Mr. Okeke stopped greeting neighbors freely because his wife suspected everyone. BC started following her husband to his mechanic workshop. Two couples stopped attending community meetings together. The streets that once laughed together now whispered, and most people didn't realize where the suspicion had started. One evening, two men nearly fought in front of Mama BC's shop. You think I don't know what your wife is telling people about me? One shouted. The other man was shocked. What nonsense are you talking about? Rumors had begun traveling across homes. Private conversations had become public gossip. Women stopped trusting their husbands. Husbands became defensive and angry. The peace of the streets was slowly breaking apart. But inside the salon, the conversations continued as usual. Mama Blessing believed she was helping. Then everything changed one Saturday afternoon. The salon was full, and Mama Blessing was busy dishing out advice like puff puff in a Nigerian wedding. Then suddenly, the door burst open. Amaka rushed in crying. Her eyes were red and swollen. Mama Blessing! The salon fell silent. What happened? Mama Blessing asked. Amaka wiped her tears. My husband has left the house. Everyone gasped. Amaka's voice shook with emotion. For weeks, I kept checking his phone, questioning him, suspecting him. She pointed at Mama Blessing. Because of what you told me. The room went silent. Then Ngozi slowly spoke. Me too. Since I started following the advice here, my marriage has been full of quarrels. Another woman added, my husband now says I listen more to salon gossip than him. The silence inside the salon felt heavy. Mama Blessing finally realized something. Her words have traveled further than she imagined. That evening, the salon closed early. Mama Blessing sat alone, staring at the empty chairs. She remembered something her grandmother used to say. The tongue has no bone, but it can break a family. For the first time, she asked herself a painful question. Had she caused more harm than good? She thought about all the advice she had given. Most of it had come from gossip, from assumptions, from stories she heard elsewhere. But those words had entered homes, real marriages, real lives. The next week, Mama Blessing did something unexpected. Whenever women started gossiping and complaining about their husbands, she stopped them gently. My sister, some matters are not for public discussion. One customer asked jokingly, Mama Blessing, you don't give advice anymore. She smiled softly. I have learned that every marriage has its own secrets. Slowly, people began settling their problems privately again. Some couples reconciled. Some relationships needed time to heal. But the atmosphere in the street slowly improved. Months later, the street felt like itself again. Children played football. Neighbors laughed. People visited each other once more. Mama Blessing's salon was busy again, but something had changed. Now, she listened more than she talked, and whenever someone tried to pull her into gossip, she would say, advice is like salt in a soup. If you put too much, the soup becomes bitter. Moral lessons. In many communities, people believe sharing advice shows wisdom, but the people of Ajegunle Street learned something important. Not every relationship problem needs an audience. Not every opinion should be spoken, because sometimes the most dangerous things in a neighborhood is not an enemy. It is a well-meaning voice that talks too much. And as Elder says, the mouth that brings trouble will not be there when the tears begins. The end. So my friends, what did you learn about this story? Share your thoughts with me in the comment section. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. And turn on your notification bell so that you don't miss any of our stories. Bye!